Kathy. I hope you're doing well. Get ready for OJ. Trying to wrap up OJ. We are really, really close to the end of this video. And then the next video is 2 hours. So we should finish that today easily because we played at a higher speed. The video after that is only 12 minutes long. So we should finish that one today too. So we'll bang through 3 videos today. If I get started. Yep, and the playback speed is good.
Cannot tell this jury that
yes, you can.
Never done such an imprint comparison.
Starting off with a bang. I assumed it was fine because I just did an entire live stream with no problems. But I'm wrong. I'm just wrong. Here we go.
And Dr. Lee's testimony concerned imprints made in blood, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And you cannot tell this jury that you
Yes,
have
you can.
ever done
This is what I was
such
talking
an
about.
imprint comparison
Yes, you can.
before.
I can't, as I said, I can't recall a specific case where that's occurred.
Now, basically, would this be a fair statement that when the call came in to you and Agent Bodziak to examine Dr. Lee's report and the imprint evidence, that Agent Bodziak said that he told you that he did not feel qualified
Bobby.
to examine the imprints on the jeans?
Bobby went away.
Well, was there a discussion between you and Agent Bodziak as to respective qualifications to evaluate the imprint evidence?
Sustained.
Was any decision made with respect to your qualifications and Agent Boziak's qualifications to evaluate the imprint evidence?
Sustained.
At the Federal Bureau of Investigation, you have a number of different units.
Is that a question? Yes.
Hair and trace,
That's one.
that's your unit.
Right.
And there's tool marks, correct?
Firearms tool marks unit.
And there's a document section, but Agent Bodziak is within the document section.
Right, he's in the shoe print tire tread unit, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So there are various different areas, and different people have different expertise.
Right.
And you're saying that out of everybody at the FBI, you were the individual that has the most experience in evaluating bloody imprint evidence on fabric.
Rephrase the question.
Did you tell us on direct examination that you were the person people went to because you had the most experience in interpreting bloody imprint evidence on fabric?
No, I never said that.
All right. You did offer some testimony Is there anybody else that has more qualifications than you at the FBI in this area?
With fabric imprint
Yeah.
comparisons? No.
So you're the most qualified, and you have not, to your recollection, ever done a bloody fabric imprint.
I
Stop.
said I can't recall.
Stop. We have to take we have to take a stronger look at Johnny Cochran's pocketbook. And I think he's putting a credit card in it. The card number is on the other side. No, it's not. Don't you can't see it. It's too furry, fuzzy, furry. But Johnny Cochran has a pocketbook, a purse. Do you want to see it? It's just like Judge Boyd. I'm gonna go back more. Okay. Ready? We're gonna not listen because we already heard this part. We're just gonna watch Johnny. I went back 20 seconds.
Said that.
All right.
Hold on.
You did offer some testimony. Is there anybody else that has more qualifications than you at the FBI?
There's a card.
in this
See
area?
it? There's his
With fabric
pocketbook.
imprint
Yeah.
comparisons? No.
So
It's not a briefcase. Look.
you're the most qualified, and
a
nobody,
pocketbook.
and you have not, to your recollection, ever done a bloody fabric imprint.
Matches his
before.
eyes.
No, I said I can't recall a specific case where I've done that.
Now, a decision had been made to do the comparisons by making this test impression before you were even called into this. Isn't that what you just told us?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
I thought,
Conversations with them about that.
but the purpose of the test impression was to make the comparison of the imprint evidence on the jeans, on the envelope, and the piece of paper.
Sustained.
Was the purpose of the test impression to make comparisons of the imprint evidence on the envelope, the piece of paper, and the jeans?
Sustained. He's not the person who made the decision to do that. He wasn't there. That's
All
what he
right.
testified to.
Well, when you were asked to do an analysis of the bloody imprint evidence, had the decision already been made, as far as you knew, as to what the mode of comparison should be?
If I'm the jury, I want him to lose. He is wasting my time. He is annoying. He is asking stupid questions nobody cares about. I want him to lose.
I'm kind of missing something here on this question. Maybe if you could repeat it for me.
All right? Before you undertook to do the bloody imprint analysis, in this case, on the fabric, piece of paper, and the envelope, had the decision already been made that the way to go about doing this was to use this identicator kit to do a test impression?
Sustained. The way it's phrased.
Did you have any involvement in the decision to use the identicator kit?
No.
Okay. Now, would you not agree that the identicator kit is what is sometimes known as inkless fingerprint?
It is inkless, yes, and it is used for fingerprints.
And that's how it evolved initially.
I'm sure it did.
And this is a sort of a yellow, long yellow pad that is pressed onto the jeans, in this case, that were lying flat on a table.
Right. I generally do it the other way. I press the fabric into the pad, but you could do it either way.
Well, do you know how it was done here?
Well, I know the way I did it, but I don't know the way they did it.
Well, when you got up and testified here about people's,
Is that 621?
621, you were working from imprints that were made at the LAPD,
That's right, yes.
made by somebody else.
Made by somebody else.
And did you endeavor to find out exactly how they made those imprints?
No, I didn't discuss that with anybody there.
And, well, did you ever review any data to figure out how they made those imprints?
No?
Now, would you not agree that the media involved in taking impressions is important in terms of imprints?
Well, there are differences in media.
All right? And as we were discussing this before, you told me that when you were first approached to do this analysis of the bloody imprints, the thought crossed your mind that the most appropriate test and experiment to perform was to take blood and use that as the media to create imprints.
No, you misstate. That's not what I said. I didn't use the term most appropriate media.
Well,
I said it did cross my mind to use blood.
it crossed your mind that doing this impression for which you were making comparisons, that it would be maybe a good idea to use blood?
Well, I thought of using blood, but that's not the protocol that we have in the unit. I don't know necessarily if it would make a better representation or not.
Well, these are bloody imprints.
Well, that's
Are
true.
these bloody imprints?
We've agreed on that, yes.
Okay. And
Do you have any idea how cool it would have been if he got one today? Because Tina just gave him a gift membership in Twitch. And if he got one today in YouTube, that would have been really, really cool. But didn't happen. You, though, rock for trying, Zach. You in Pennsylvania? You cold? How cold is it? Oh, no, it's in the 40s. You're not cold. It's not that cold out.
blood is thicker or more viscous, I think the term is, than the inkless chemicals that you're using to make your test impressions here.
Yes.
And blood coagulates quickly.
I'm not a serologist. I don't know what the rate of coagulation is.
But in terms of designing a scientific experiment to do comparisons, isn't it desirable to be using like media to make comparisons when dealing with imprints?
Darn it, Bobby missed this too. Bobby, it's more desirable to use something media when doing thumbprints. Bobby, now you know how to be desirable, and you missed it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to nitpick this down to this level, if the results that you get are so definitive, then maybe you want to do that. But we're not talking about something that's that definitive. We're only talking about a little line that doesn't have a lot of characteristics.
Well, is your answer then you don't think it would have been desirable to create an experiment where the imprints were done with blood?
I don't know if it would be or not.
Well, basically, I think by your answer you said the reason that you decided not to do the imprints in blood or perform experiments along those lines is that it wasn't part of your standard protocol in the laboratory.
Yeah, that's not the standard protocol that we have to take whole blood and do things like that.
So is this standard protocol written down someplace in your laboratory?
Well, it would be in the protocol manual.
In the protocol manual, do you address the analysis of bloody imprints anyplace?
I believe so. I think they do discuss that, but I can't recall.
Bloody imprints on fabric.
I don't recall that, but I know bloody type imprints are discussed.
Well, is there any place in your protocol where it says the standard procedure for doing a comparison of bloody imprints, particularly fabric on fabric, is to use this identicator kit?
Now, I think the use of different materials like identicator or ink or whatever, that kind of flexes a little bit.
Now, you've said that, to the best of your recollection, you've never done a bloody imprint comparison before. I think you told us that.
I think we've asked that question
No,
about
it's just a foundational question.
5 times.
I don't recall a specific case where I've done that type of comparison, bloody imprint on fabric.
And yet, you say that you decided not to create imprints for purposes of comparison with blood because there was some kind of standard procedure as to how to do this.
No, I mean, it's just not, no, there's no, in the protocol, I don't believe it indicates what kind of medium to use. We've been using identicator and we've been using ink pads over the years, but to take whole blood, it's not something that we routinely do.
Okay. Now, would you agree that blood on fabric can saturate the fabric?
Yes.
And that often when fabric is saturated and you make an imprint, that can, for lack of a better word, smush the ridges so you can't see the imprint.
Right. Too much fluid will ruin the imprint.
Right.
That's another word for obscure.
Obscure. Thank you. And on Mr. Goldman's jeans, you saw areas where it was saturated.
It appeared to be.
Now, another scientific fact, well, would you agree that another scientific fact about these imprints is that they are in blood, but also that the imprint on the envelope, the piece of paper, and the jeans, actually, are static. That is, they show evidence of little movement.
Well, it's difficult to say with the genes because I think I've already testified that it might be a swiping type or a moving type motion that may have caused that. But the papers, probably static. I would think the papers were sitting and then something landed on it.
So you would agree that in terms of the observations, that we could agree it's a scientific fact that the bloody imprints were made and impressed with relatively little movement.
Yeah, that's reasonable. I don't really know the dynamics, or nor could I say with 100% certainty what the dynamics were of this, but it probably was laying down and something landed on that one area.
And you would think that would be the most reasonable interpretation of how the imprint got on the paper and how it got on the envelope.
Yeah, that's more logical than having the paper float down and land on something, and, I think it's more reasonable.
And is your reluctance to opine on this a little bit because you feel a bit insecure about making comments in the area of bloodstain interpretation?
I'm not reluctant to answer the question. I don't feel I'm necessarily lacking abilities in doing this type of comparison. I think blood comparisons on fabric as far as imprint can be done in a similar way to other types of materials.
But I guess what I was really asking you don't feel in any way uneasy about offering opinions about these bloody imprints because, as I think you've told us, you don't regard yourself as having expertise in the area of bloodstain or blood pattern interpretation.
No, it's just a transfer medium, that's all. It's a different one than what we use.
Now, if I understand your opinion correctly, you're indicating that there was a bloody imprint made on the envelope and a bloody imprint made on the paper, correct?
Right.
And you say it is consistent with having come from a pair of blue jeans.
Could have.
So, based on that interpretation, that some person wearing blue jeans would have to have come into direct contact with that paper and with that envelope separate occasions.
May have been the same contact, maybe just a different portion of the same bloody surface, whatever it may be. I mean, if you're talking about a leg, it could be that long, and I don't know the relationship of the paper with the envelope. So if they're in the same general area, a piece of the bottom portion of the jeans may hit, if that's jeans, and a portion of the knee may hit, for instance. I don't know. It could be two separate incidences or one.
Well, you said you don't know the relationship between where the envelope was and where the paper was.
No, I don't recall that.
You haven't seen a photograph of Detective Furman pointing to the Rockingham glove with the envelope near his foot and the piece of paper out on the walkway.
Counsel, you're misstating the evidence.
Right. Well, have you seen a photograph of Detective Furman pointing at, I said Rockingham glove. I'm so tired, I'm sorry. Pointing at the Bundy glove, all right? Seen that picture?
I think I have, yes.
All right. And does that picture orient you as to where the envelope and the piece of paper were in relation to each other?
I just don't recall. I mean, I'd have to really see the pictures. Obviously, it's a pretty small area, so it had to be pretty close.
So when you said it's possible that the imprints that you are asserting could have come from a pair of blue jeans, if it were Mr. Goldman's blue jeans and it were one contact, then that would have meant that Mr. Goldman's body was configured in such a way that his jeans were hitting the envelope and hitting that piece of paper at the walkway at about the same time.
Well, if that's a single event, that's what we're saying, or it may have been two events.
All right. So in terms of your reconstruction, that could have been one event that wouldn't you expect that would have meant that he had fallen in the walkway?
I don't know, maybe so.
If your interpretation...
If that's where the imprint was applied, if it was on the soil or somewhere else, I don't know where in relationship to the body that imprint pattern was deposited.
But it would be fair to rule out, in terms of your interpretation, that the imprint, for example, on the envelope of the piece of paper could have come about with the envelope of the piece of paper hitting jeans and then falling to the ground.
Objection. It's not speculation beyond scope.
Oh,
I don't know. I think I've said that it seems reasonable that the papers were laying flat, and then contact occurred, causing the imprint pattern.
Yeah.
That seems to me logical, but there has to be some force, some resistance to that contact. So the paper, if it were not on the ground, would have had to have been against something so that that imprint occurred. It wouldn't be floating. It would have to be either held or on something else.
When you and I were talking before, and we were operating on your premise that this could have come from Mr. Goldman's jeans, these two imprints, that didn't you indicate, aren't you saying, that you felt it unlikely that either the piece of paper or the envelope could have gotten these imprints if they had just touched the jeans and fallen to the
Yeah, I
ground?
think I've already testified to that
needs to
too.
Stop.
Yes, just wanted to be clear.
Seriously, stop.
And if it were, as you're indicating, and assuming that, just going along with, I guess, a presumption you've made that it could have been imprints caused by Mr. Goldman's jeans, and there were two contacts, then that would have to be two separate contacts of Mr. Goldman's jeans, one on the envelope and one on the piece of paper.
Or another pair of jeans. Right. Or maybe two different pairs of jeans.
Now, do you have any idea whose blood or any genetic typings are on the blood on the envelope?
No.
Objection, no foundation beyond the scope.
I'm just asking if he knows.
Beyond the scope, no.
Overruled. He said no.
And certainly, that piece of paper, to your knowledge, was never collected, right?
Objection beyond the scope, all respectively.
Overruled.
My understanding, and I don't have the greatest understanding of all the events of this case, they don't have that piece of paper.
Right. I mean, certainly, if that piece of paper were available, at some point you'd want to look at it for purposes of coming in and testifying about comparisons.
Objection is irrelevant, all speculation.
Overruled.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the actual evidence, yes.
Although you rendered your opinion with respect to the imprints on the blue jeans just from photos.
I did.
Oh no,
Yeah,
my
I did
knife
that
is
with
on.
just the photographs.
I got
right.
a donut.
Now,
Butter pecan.
you indicated that you thought that Dr. Lee's board with the jeans was misleading. Is that right?
Well, I said that, two things I said. I said that the direction of the arrows as to where these photographs were taken were not correct. I don't think that necessarily represents misleading anybody, but the magnifications do appear to be a little bit different.
All right, Mr. Shag, is this 1339?
Yes, and and my apologies if yours in back, but I'm just going to do a quick general one.
I just want to make sure that's 1339.
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you.
Now, just if I understand your testimony correctly, you would agree that imprint 1 and imprint 2 are, when you examine them, of about the same magnification.
Right, they appear to be, yes.
And your criticism here is that imprint 3 is of a different magnification.
Well, I wouldn't call it a criticism. It's just an observation that it appears to be a little less magnified.
Well, were you trying to convey the impression to the jury that somehow by breaking out these larger magnifications of the genes that Dr. Lee, in creating this board, was in some fashion trying to mislead?
No, what I was saying here was that these photographs do not appear to be the same magnification. So if you're going to do a comparison between the two, it wouldn't be as accurate as if they were the same magnification.
But the facts, just so we agree, these two, to the best of your knowledge, when you measure, you can just measure
Yeah,
the...
they look the same.
They look the same. This one seems a little different. That's
A
what
little,
you're saying?
little smaller.
Incidentally, just on this issue, I think you were saying that the way one magnifies lines, these impressions, can affect the way that one views the comparisons.
Yes,
And I think, as you conceded, you didn't label the bottom ones here either.
I didn't. That's right.
And with respect to Dr. Lee's testimony, do you know if Dr. Lee ever told this jury that all three of these pictures were exactly the same magnification?
I don't know that, no.
All right, Mr. Scheck, you're referring to 621 now, is that correct?
Yeah, I just briefly, thanks, Mayor. Now,
Good news, bad news, Bobby. Good news, bad news, bad news. All right. Let's start with the good news. Bobby, Tina gave you a gift membership on Twitch. So if you wanted to watch this ad-free, you can go to Twitch and watch it with no ads. Anybody else, if you're getting ads on YouTube and you don't want to, you can use your Amazon Prime membership to subscribe to one Twitch channel for free. Then you can watch it with no ads over there. The same live stream. You look, the chat is up. Look, there's Tina gifting Bobby a membership on Twitch. Anyway, bad news, Bobby. Zach tried to give you a gift membership on YouTube and failed. Son of a gun. Worst news, Bobby. The worst bad news, Bobby. Sheck just tried to tell us how to be desirable by using something for thumbprints. I should have paid attention for you. But now you will never know how to be desirable because you missed that part. Something about thumbprints. And you're desirable. Sheck said so himself. Thank you, Tina. Thank you. Thank you, Zach. Thank you.
Ordinarily, when magnifications are done, isn't it the standard forensic practice, if one's trying to do precise enlargements to scale, is to put a ruler in the picture?
Well, you could do that, yes.
And the reason that one puts a ruler in the picture is then, if somebody actually wants to go and do a
Please don't put a
precise
ruler in the
comparison,
picture.
you can
Please.
take a look at the ruler, make a measurement, take a look at the lines, make a measurement, and do precise comparisons.
Right. Well, yeah, I had rulers in these, but the pictures were pretty big.
Let's
So in
just
order to
skip
cut them
the
down for
picture,
the chart
can
so
we?
I could ship them, I cut the rulers off. So there might be some portions of the rulers underneath the border. Okay.
Now, were the rulers in these Polaroids that
No,
you made?
I didn't put those in the Polaroids, but they were in the other 4 shots.
So just to be clear, the two bottom pictures are Polaroids.
Those were enlargements of Polaroids, yes.
And there were no rulers there.
I didn't, no.
And basically, I think you indicated to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you just basically had these taken and then you sent them in the lab and you said, make them 8 by 10s.
Yeah, I took them at about 4 times magnification. I asked that they be enlarged to 8 by 10 so you could see them better. And it comes out to be about 8 times or
EDTA
so.
is irresistible but not desirable. Thumbprints apparently are desirable.
Now, I believe would you agree that with respect to an imprint made in blood, that if a shoe had in a certain portion of the sole blood on it,
Those were the days, Zach.
and
Those were the
but not
days.
the entire sole, and a portion of it hit the side of an envelope, it can make an imprint such as is depicted on the envelope here.
It has to be on the stove next to the foundation.
Oh,
Well, it could if the pattern on the base of that shoe exhibited or left a pattern just like Levi jeans. And it would look like that.
Well, you say a pattern like Levi jeans. If the pattern on the sole of a shoe had parallel line imprints that were consistent with what you see on the envelope, then in terms of the imprint you see, this would be consistent with a portion of the shoe touching the envelope.
Right. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference if all the other things were the same.
Mr.
And-
Could you step around to the other side of the exhibit, please? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're blocking jury number 7, you SOB. Disbarment. One more time and you're disbarred. Forget sanctions.
I'm sorry? 3:30? No, 4 o'clock.
Now, this is the chart you created with respect to the imprints on the jeans. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right, is this 619?
I believe it is. Now, you said that you created photographs on the right side of this exhibit that were about 1-to-1.
Well, they were created in the photo lab, yes, from the negative.
And you and I discussed earlier this morning the... Could you get down for just 1 second?
Sure.
The
Oh, I hope he doesn't fall and punch you right in the nose
photograph
by
in the upper
accident.
right-hand corner of this chart. The second photograph down, there is a circle. Is that correct?
Right. There's a circle. There's a circle beneath the circle. Yes.
All right. And that is a pattern that has a contour of about, what would you say, 3 inches?
It's pretty close, yes.
And also, you can see within it parallel line imprints.
Looks to be, yes.
And would you not agree that that could be consistent with the heel of a shoe?
You're getting into Mr. Boziak's area. I can only speak as a layperson.
And when you and I were discussing this before, what did you tell me?
This may be the edge of a shoe.
And the best you could do in assuming that these parallel line imprints came from Mr. Goldman's shirt was raise the possibility that that represented his elbow?
I suggested that, yes. It might be, but I don't know.
Now, a swipe. Now, did you I put this up on the Elmo, Your Honor? It's defense 1340.
1340.
I think you were there.
Yeah. Oral. Yes, I know what it is.
They won't let me leave a message, and they won't answer the phone. But I'm trying, Bobby. I am trying. Hi, Kelly.
I have a feeling that this isn't going to be the best. Oh, there it is. Now, can you see the monitor there?
Yes.
All right. Now, was part of the testimony of Dr. Lee that you watched the demonstration that he performed with respect to blood patterns?
I missed a lot of that.
Okay. Now, in terms of, you said you had some training or familiarity with blood pattern analysis.
No, I said I have some experience with serology and serology testing procedures, but blood pattern analysis has been was left up to one other examiner primarily in the laboratory. I didn't do much of that.
Okay. Well, to your knowledge, do you know that in terms of blood pattern analysis, when experts in that field refer to swipes, they're referring to something on the order of that pattern?
Objection, this was beyond the scope of his expertise. Found it.
Sustained.
Well, when you use the word swipe in your direct examination, you are indicating that it caused Mr. Goldman's shirt could have swiped the jeans in a certain area and caused an imprint. Can you say that?
Well, I used the word swipe, yes. It could have been moving in a direction, one direction.
Could you show the jury where on this diagram you're referring to the place where the imprints were made that were a swipe?
You have before. Exhibit taken down in view of the witness's answer.
Oral.
No relevance.
That's true.
What?
He's not a blood pattern person, but you can have him describe the portion on this exhibit.
I'm only going to go into now what he said. I think we've
I understand.
established
I know.
what he doesn't know.
Right, take it down.
Oh, take the spat down. Oh, sure. What area did you say what imprint was created by a swipe on this exhibit?
I indicated it may be some type of swiping motion in the direction of the ribs.
Oh no, I
One direction
can't get
going this
federal
way,
ever.
One
Oh,
going
that
this
would
way, another
stink.
down here in this area.
I'm gonna still
Essentially, it
try.
looks to be slightly, maybe three different motions. And if you're assuming here that this is the shirt could have brushed it back and forth, perhaps a couple different directions.
And where is that on the is that here on the pants?
Yes, it starts essentially near where this blob is, down, starts at about 11
Can you
o'clock.
see that? All right, so
Sorry.
here, can you stand
No,
up?
I don't
Sorry.
think that.
It starts this blob area here, which is this area here. It's pretty small.
Now, Agent Diedrich, looking at you're referring to the circle now, let's be straight for the record, on the picture of the blue jeans on this diagram, the upper circle is the area that you've blown up on the upper right-hand photograph.
Right, would have been, I think it's generally both. You may incorporate, I guess it is, right, it is the top circle primarily.
It's the top circle primarily.
That's right.
And the section that you've drawn the second circle around in the upper right-hand photograph, right? That's just below the circle.
Right, it's just below this top circle, that's correct, on the jeans.
And as you said before, I don't mean to be nitpicky, but maybe is this a small error in terms of breaking out?
You got me on that,
All
Mr.
right,
Scheck.
no big deal. I agree. But let's talk about the upper right-hand photograph in the top circle. I think you've indicated that you see a different set of imprints going in different directions against the grain.
Yes, it does appear that way.
Now, I realize that you were using the term swipe
You
without any
realize. You
particular
don't realize
reference
shit,
to
buddy.
an expertise in blood pattern analysis, right?
Right, that's right.
But the substance of what you were saying is that you were suggesting that those imprint patterns could have been made, and I think your motion was, by a movement of the arm or the sleeve against the side of the jeans.
It may have been, yes.
Now, do you have any scientific basis as a blood pattern analyst to tell us what kind of imprint would be left by the shirt coming into contact with the jeans with movement?
No.
Are you familiar with Dr. Lee's testimony that the imprints in this area of the jean represented multiple imprints on top of each other, that was his interpretation?
I don't recall his testimony.
And do you recall his testimony that the reason he reached that conclusion is he had those distinct imprint lines that were consistent with a flat surface covered by blood hitting the side of the jeans?
Objection irrelevant, what are you saying?
That's just a suggestion, an idea that I came up with here, that it could have been a brushing type movement.
You were kind of improvising?
I was just saying, offering that as a possibility.
Would it be fair to say, Agent Dietrich, from what you know of Dr. Lee, that his experience and expertise in the area of bloodstain interpretation and the interpretation of bloody imprints is vastly superior to yours?
I can't even answer that question.
You can't, well, let's establish it. You've conceded that you have next to no expertise in this area.
Objection vague, what are
The area of bloodstain interpretation. You don't hold yourself out as an expert in that at all, do you?
I'm not claiming to be one.
I understand. Now, by reputation, are you aware of what is Dr. Lee's reputation in this area, if you know?
I think he has a background in blood serology type testing.
You don't have any knowledge of him having written any texts or given any lectures, even at the FBI, on bloodstain pattern interpretation?
I've never attended any. I know I read his book.
I'm sorry?
I read the book that he wrote.
On serology.
No, it was a book by DeForest, I believe Gensman also participated in that.
Introduction to Forensics.
I guess that sounds like it.
Had a chapter on bloodstain, blood pattern interpretation.
I can't recall all the chapters.
Well, does it bother you even a little bit, Agent Dietrich, that you've been brought in here to this courtroom at the end of the trial to render an opinion about a... Well, you're testifying here about a bloody imprint, and you readily concede that you have no expertise or training in blood stain pattern interpretation.
Objection irrelevant, and argumentative. It's not what he's testifying about.
Sustained.
Now, you're saying that you believe that the imprints on the jeans could have been caused by the impact of Mr. Goldman's sleever against the jeans.
Could have been, yes.
Or actually, I should say, I misstated that, or the swiping against the side of the jeans.
I said swiping, yes, as a possibility.
Now, did
Swiper,
you
no swiping.
see
Swiper, no
any
swiping.
two-way transfer here? That is, an imprint on Mr. Goldman's shirt that reflected the pattern of the jeans.
No, I didn't even look for one.
sorry, Your Honor, I'm just taking some time. It's no longer.
Sanctions. You don't need to take any more time. We got it. Everybody got it. We need Dora, Bobby. We need Dora.
Now, one point I forgot. Agent Dietrich, when you were suggesting before that you thought it might be possible that there was withdrawn. If I could summarize then what you said in your report, your opinion, you say that the imprint on the envelope and the imprint on the piece of paper are quote-unquote like the test impressions done in inkless fingerprint chemicals, for lack of a better term, that you made.
Yes.
Oh,
That was your report. In your report, you used the word like.
Right. It doesn't. It's all those words aren't in the report, but it means that essentially.
No, in your report, don't you use the word like?
Yeah, I do, but I didn't say the inkless stuff.
Right, but when
I
you were-
didn't include that.
When you're referring to it, you're referring to the test impressions that you made, right?
Right.
And just to be clear, there were, for example, from the gene, 7 test impressions made
At least, yes.
by the LAPD.
Right.
2 on August 21st.
Right.
5 on August 31st.
I believe there were different dates for those. Yes.
Then you came back here yesterday,
Right.
and then you went to the genes,
Right.
and you did your own imprints.
That's right.
And you looked at the genes for the first time for purposes of imprint examination.
That's right.
And you'd already written your report.
That's right.
And did you see any purpose in doing that other than being able to come in here and tell the jury that you'd actually done it yourself?
Oh, I wanted to see, just to take a look at them to see that, in fact, there were yellow markings on the legs, that I wanted to see the imprint patterns personally that I indicated were like the shirt, other than just to show that the imprint patterns that I made are just like the imprint patterns that they made. That's basically it.
Now, you are not saying that you can positively identify these patterns as being from Ron Goldman's genes?
That's right. I can't.
And you're not even saying that it couldn't have come from genes worn by another person?
I'm not saying that. Yes.
And you're not even saying that it could be genes, that it is necessarily an imprint made from genes.
That's right.
Now, at the end of your testimony from Ms. Clark, you said that the bottom line, or the conclusion you drew from your analysis of all these imprints, is that all you could say is that Ron Goldman was at the crime scene.
Well, based on the could have associations, that's one interpretation, yes.
Well, didn't you say at the end of your testimony that the bottom line is, you can tell us, your conclusion is Ron Goldman was at the crime scene?
Right. What I'm saying is
That's what you said.
essentially that. That's right.
That's what you say. But when you say at the end with that conclusion that you've now reached the judgment that it was Ron Goldman at the crime scene, aren't you indicating by that answer that you have conclusively demonstrated that those imprints on the envelope and the piece of paper came from Ron Goldman's genes and no
Yeah,
other genes?
well, in a
No
way,
other
murder,
right. In a way, you're
suicide.
correct. That's right.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Mr. Diedrich, you formed your opinions concerning the source of the impressions on the envelope and the paper initially based on the test impressions done at LAPD, correct?
That's right.
You then did your own test impressions more recently on the genes, correct?
Right.
Did you then compare the test impressions you made off the genes to the imprints on the envelope and the paper?
No, I don't believe I had those. I didn't have those photographs for that. Basically, it was comparing the imprint patterns to see if the design was the same, to see if the spacing was the same. And I didn't have any reason to doubt that it would be.
And why is that?
Well, I guess I trusted them to do what they said they were doing, and it looked like they did that.
Did your test impressions look like the test impressions earlier done by LAPD?
Yes.
Did you see any distinctions that caused you to change your opinion as to the conclusion that the pattern on, or the imprint on the envelope and the paper was consistent with Ron Goldman's genes?
I had no reason to exclude based upon the second one, and they were all the same. no reason to believe my impressions or my imprint patterns would be any different in a comparison side by side than the first set.
Okay. So the LAPD test impressions that were done and your test impressions that you did yourself were the same.
It's from the same pair of genes, right?
And doing your own test impressions, did that cause you to change any of your opinions previously formed about the genes having been consistent with the source of the imprint on the envelope and the paper?
No.
Now, sir, is there a difference between blood spatter pattern analysis and the interpretation of a bloody imprint?
Objection. No basis for the witness to answer the question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think you're talking about a imprint pattern analysis. That if it's on fabric, it would fall into my area, no matter what the medium was that was on that fabric. But blood spatter is different. It's a different topic altogether.
And how is it different, sir?
Well, it deals with the movement, the projecting of blood, and then what happens to it after it strikes.
Now, did you hear Dr. Lee state at any time any qualifications he had to compare and identify bloody fabric impressions?
I don't recall.
Did not hear Dr. Lee's complete testimony. Improper question.
Overruled.
Yeah.
Counsel will stand. He said no. Next question.
And are you aware that Dr. Lee gave no indication that he had any qualifications?
Sustains argument.
Do you think that, sir, the fact that you cannot recall a specific case in which you compared or identified bloody imprints on fabric, does that inhibit your ability to determine the source of the imprints found in blood in this case?
No, but no. I mean, there's a lot of cases I don't remember.
The fact that you cannot recall a specific case, does that indicate in any way that you have never compared or attempted to identify a bloody imprint on fabric in your past experience?
No, I mean, I've had blood imprints on sheets. I mentioned that, but I can't recall a specific case. Many of those have been shoe prints.
And when you have determined that you see an imprint that you think is a shoe print, what do you do with it?
Give it to Mr. Bill Bodziak.
You indicated a I think you indicated an observation, sir. I'm showing you people 619. You indicated an observation of an area on the jeans that you thought might be caused by Ron Goldman's bloody elbow.
Right, yes, I believe it's a second circle. Well, it would have been the, right,
The upper
just
circle?
just below that top circle. Would have been the second circle on the black and white photographs on the right.
The upper circle?
No, the second one.
Okay. And is that the curved line you see here?
No, I think it's it's in a little further.
Can you point that out? And for the record, the witness has pointed to a curved line that appears more towards the right of the circle as you face the photograph.
Right. Yes, that's correct.
You were asked a question earlier about whether that might be a shoe print, correct?
I was asked that question, yes.
Is that your field of expertise, sir?
No, I've already stated I'm not an expert in shoe prints.
Now, you indicated that you earlier looked at these items of clothing, the shirt and the jeans, earlier in the case, correct?
I did,
And for what purpose?
mainly just to take a look at them after some drying time. And also I wanted to take a look at them to see composition, appearance, type of fabric, and there was some damage. I was interested in determining possibly some damage to the fabrics.
What damage was that?
Well, to see if there was any way that I might be able to make a statement about the type of weapon that may have been used.
Objection outside the scope of cross-examination.
Overruled.
Did you?
Well, it looked to be a single-edged knife, about 3/4 inch,
Did you make any
or
observations?
more. I mean, at least one cut that I saw, very sharp.
And did you make any such observations with respect to the shirt?
That was on the shirt and on the jeans, both.
Single-edged weapon as to both?
Well, the ones that were clear, some were gaping type cuts, but the ones that were clear, at about 3/4 inch, it appeared that was the size of the weapon, and it was single-edged.
All right, counsel, we're actually going afield of the cross-examination. We did discuss the other purpose for which Mr. Diedrich looked at the Levi's.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you. So that was the other purpose that you looked at it for earlier in the case, correct, sir?
Right, a couple things. One, to see it after it's dried a little bit, see if there's any more particulate that I could remove, and for damage.
At that time, did you make any observations concerning any imprints of significance?
No, I didn't look at it for that reason.
Now that you have, I take it you have now.
I have, yes.
First of all, now that you've looked at the jeans and the shirt for imprints of some significance to the solution of the case, did you find any imprints that you found were of significance to the identification of the murder or the manner in which the crime occurred?
No.
And in saying that the conclusions you formed placed Ron Goldman at the crime scene, were you attempting to convey that you found no significance in the imprints you had identified?
Well, they didn't seem to me that significant.
You also I think you indicated that you did not do any test impressions in blood on cross-examination, correct?
That's right.
Do you feel that your failure to have done that in any way has a negative impact on the validity of your opinions?
I don't think it has that. Again, I haven't done test imprints in blood. I've done them in a more viscous material that's ink, with ink pads. But I don't think it detracts from the conclusion at all, just because I didn't use blood.
Why not?
Well, we're looking at test imprints, just an imprint pattern of a medium that's on the surface of a fabric. And with blood, I don't think it matters. But again, I haven't done that, so perhaps that's another story.
Something that you might do later?
Well, maybe somebody who's interested in that, perhaps.
In any case, sir, the conclusions that you drew in this case after comparison with test impressions, do you feel confident in those conclusions of consistency with jeans and shirt?
The answer is in proper form.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that.
And the fact that you used initially photographs of the jeans and shirt to make your comparisons, does that in any way undermine the validity of your opinions concerning the consistency of the jeans with the imprint on the envelope and paper and the consistency of the shirt with the imprint on the jeans?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, with some of those patterns, they're pretty small, and you have to enlarge them, and the best way to do that is through photography. So it actually helps you.
All right, final question, sir. With respect to the imprint on the envelope and the paper, can you tell us whether, and you concluded that that was consistent with Ron Goldman's jeans, correct?
Right.
Were those imprints on the paper and the envelope consistent with Ron Goldman having fallen and writhing on the ground on top of that paper and envelope at some point during the murder?
There's nothing in my questions about writhing.
Oh. I mean, that's possible.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Chair? How much do you have?
Well, actually, I believe that... some
18
questions
to
and answers
life,
opened up something else
Judge.
after the
That's
fact.
how much more testimony he
All right, ladies and
wants.
gentlemen, we'll take our recess at this time. Remember, all my admonitions to you will be in recess for about 15.
Let's see if there's any sidebars while I'm driving.
I was informed they have some more questions.
I'm sorry?
I was informed they have some more questions.
It's a sidebar right
Well,
now.
Ms. Clark's not here. I think that's kind of the end of it, isn't it?
Anything to end.
On the record.
Oh, you're going to get a sidebar while I'm driving. I'm sorry.
All right, Deputy McNarrows has the jurisdiction.
Sorry. You'll live. You've did it before. You're pros at it.
We've been rejoined by all the members
Oops, wrong button.
of our jury panel. Mr. Dietrich,
not
would you resume the
mute.
witness stand, please? And good afternoon again, Mr. Dietrich. Ms. Clark, you had a couple more questions.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly. Mr. Diedrich, you were asked a little bit on cross-examination about whether an imprint could have been a shoe print on the jeans. You recall that question?
I do, yes.
I take it by some of your answers that you have seen shoe prints before.
I have plenty.
In your experience, sir, is there a difference based on what you've seen in the past between the nature of a fabric impression and a shoe print impression?
Well, fabric impressions are often a little more hazy. Because it's soft, it doesn't leave a very sharp line, sharp indication, like a hard surface would.
Such as a shoe?
shoe, imprint outline of any hard item, but shoes in particular.
Now, is the science, you talked a little bit about various kinds of imprint analysis. You talked about firearms identification, striations on a bullet, and fingerprints. Is the science of imprint analysis an old science, sir?
Well, it's been around as long as fingerprinting, and that's been a while.
And when you find, for example, a bloody fingerprint at a crime scene, you have a suspect. Do you require the suspect to make his fingerprint in blood before you compare those fingerprints?
No, they're made in ink. They're inked prints.
So even when you have a bloody fingerprint, you compare that fingerprint in blood to an inked print taken from the suspect.
Right, that's standard practice.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Scheck?
Ms. Clark asked you on redirect examination whether it in any way undermined your opinions that you lacked background in blood spatter analysis. You recall that?
Yeah, I don't have any expertise in blood spatter analysis.
But she asked you whether that lack of expertise in any way undermined, in your opinion, the validity of any of your conclusions. Do you recall that?
Yeah, I don't believe it has an impact on the imprint pattern comparisons.
The bloody imprint pattern comparison.
Right.
And you said that blood spatter analysis, as you understood it, concerned the movement, projection of blood, and what happens to it when it strikes surfaces.
Well, that's my limited understanding of it.
And based even on your limited understanding of it, do you think that might have something to do with an analysis of bloody imprints?
I don't see it in the same vein.
Well, I'm having a little trouble with this. Agent Diedrich, if you don't know something, how do you know that it's irrelevant?
It's argumentative, counsel.
Well, without knowledge of this field, how can you state with such assurance to the jury that it has no relevance to an analysis of bloody imprints?
Well, I really can't comment on that.
Right. And Agent Diedrich, just take that explanation you gave about swipe. You recall that?
Yes.
Upon reflection, do you think that an understanding of blood pattern analysis might be of some usefulness in interpreting the multiple imprint impressions in the area of the genes that you are telling us was caused by a swipe?
Well, it said it may have. That was a possible explanation for it.
Well, I think blood spatter analysis might have some relevance to that point.
Well, it'd be nice to know a little bit about everything, or maybe a lot about everything, but I don't know everything.
Well, before you hold yourself out as an expert on bloody imprints at the conclusion of this trial, you think it might be important even to consult somebody who had expertise about that?
Sustained.
Now, you said that you had looked at the shirt and the jeans at some point on redirect examination. Recall that?
I do.
And you observed imprints at that time.
No, I don't recall seeing imprints at that time.
Didn't you say on redirect examination that you saw imprints when you observed the jeans?
No, I didn't look at the clothing items at that time early on for that purpose, nor did I notice any.
Did you ever inspect the clothing items?
guys.
Well, when was
I'll
this
be right
first time
back.
you inspected the jeans or the shirt?
Behave, Bobby.
I'm thinking August of '94.
And was there a subsequent time you examined the jeans?
Well, I looked at them for the second time last night.
Okay. So in August of '94, you looked up and down the jeans and you were looking for damage?
Well, I did examine the jeans and the shirt for possible damage.
And was it that time that you made the observations that you told us about on redirect examination with respect to knives?
Right. It was basically an observation of both the jeans and the shirt.
So that's August of 1991 that you made this inspection? 94?
94.
94,
Right.
right?
That's right.
Okay. Now, when you were conducting that inspection in August of '94, did you observe the imprint with the circular ridge and the parallel lines that you've identified in people's 619 as an imprint that you thought, based on your observations, could be consistent with the imprint of a heel?
No, I didn't make any observations regarding imprint patterns or whatever type at that point.
All right, that's 619 upper photograph, lower circle.
If you had noticed that, would you have immediately notified Agent Bodziak or someone else to go examine that? Because could be an imprint pattern consistent with a shoe?
I don't know quite how to answer that. I assumed at one point it would be coming in, but then it may not have. I just didn't make that observation.
Well, you said you didn't see anything, I think, on redirect examination of significance.
From an imprint pattern standpoint, I didn't look for anything regarding that.
Would you agree that sometimes the significance of imprint patterns or any other observations are affected by the point of view one has towards the examination of the evidence?
Perhaps.
Now, you said, I guess it's, well, we've now established that it was on your August 31st, or August, is it August 31st, 1994, that you looked at the shirt?
It was in August, I remember. I can't recall the exact date.
August of 1994, you examined the shirt for damage.
That's right.
And that's, Ms. Clark asked you on redirect examination about your observations with respect to damage caused perhaps by knives.
Right, I did observe some cutting marks.
And before she asked you that question, the two of you hadn't discussed it at all.
No.
Just a question she happened to ask you out of the blue at the end of this trial about damage to the shirt.
Yes, that's right.
No discussion between the two of you whatsoever about what answer you might give.
No.
Is that typical in your experience?
Excuse me, counsel, I did cut off the redirect examination
Well-
as to this issue
I understand, but substantive things were said, and I'd like to just explore them briefly, Your Honor, because the jury heard them.
briefly.
Now, you told this jury that you saw damage to the back of Mr. Goldman's shirt, correct?
That's right.
And that you now recall that you saw one area where there was a 3/4 of an inch, what would you call it, incision or
It
entry?
looked like a stab cut.
Stab cut. And that you had concluded it was from a sharp instrument
Yes.
and a single-edged knife.
Yes.
And you made such observations and conclusions in August of 1994.
That was an observation I made then, yes.
Did you write it down?
No.
Did you make a report about it?
No.
Did you take a photograph of it?
No.
When you inspected the shirt last night, the gaping area was not in the same condition as when you observed it.
Well, it looked to be a little bit different, and probably because of handling.
Is the reason that you did not bother writing down, documenting, taking a photograph of this damage you saw with respect to an entry that you said comes from a single-edged knife, is you thought somebody else will do it, not my department?
Well, it was not a requested examination. I didn't have a weapon to compare it to.
And didn't you tell me before you thought somebody else would deal with it?
I don't recall saying that, but
Is that
I wasn't involved with examining the items of evidence except for looking for hair and fiber.
But didn't you just say that you were looking at the shirt for damage?
Right, I did. That's because I was in the lab, but the main purpose was to look at the shirt, to see it, just to be familiar with the structure of it, the composition of it, the texture of it, transferability of it, and also damage as part of it. But also the items will dry. Early processing of items for hair and fiber evidence often will not recover as much as secondary processing.
But I thought you said, so one of the purposes of observing the shirt in August of 1994 was damage.
That was part of it, right.
And damage would include something that could be consistent with a knife wound.
It was, at the time, like scientific curiosity, just to see what type of damage was present in the shirt.
Never told anybody about it?
No.
And as you sit here today, you can actually remember, without any notes, that it was a 3/4 of an inch incision in its widest part.
Right, that would have been the maximum blade width, 3/4 inch.
You measure it
Sure.
and didn't write it down.
No.
Just remember it now.
Oh, I remembered it all along.
And just shared it with everybody right now today.
Sustain.
On redirect examination, you were asked about, you were talking about the number of cases where you did fabric comparisons. You recall that? Ms. Clark was asking you about
I
that?
talked about fabric, but I don't know what type of comparison you're asking about.
Well, on cross-examination, I had asked you, we had established, we'd agreed, that to the best of your knowledge, you had never done a case involving bloody imprints on fabric to fabric.
Sustained. Rephrase
Well-
the question.
On redirect examination, are you now saying that you might have done such a case, but you forgot it?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Did you just say on redirect examination that you could have done such a bloody imprint case, but you simply don't remember?
No, I said that I couldn't recall a specific case. I've worked a lot of cases involving imprint patterns, especially on sheets, on homicide victims, people standing over the body. You'll see a lot of those imprint patterns, but I can't recall what case it was.
Well, I asked you a very specific question about bloody imprints made by one fabric to another. Now, are you saying now that you might have done such a case, but you just can't remember it?
Argument. Rephrase the question.
Are you saying that you could have done such an analysis, but you have forgotten it?
Well, as I said, I don't remember all my cases, and I do recall getting cases similar to that over the years, but there's an awful lot of cases that we get in.
But the group of imprint cases that you say you worked on are primarily dust imprint. You say about 100?
About 100 cases, that's right.
All right, counsel, this is really getting redundant.
Well, shit.
It's redundant.
Okay. But you can remember that 1/4 of an inch entry of the knife in August that you never wrote down and never took a picture of, right?
You're misstating. It's misstating the.
3/4 of an inch. That one you got.
I got that right, yeah. I still remember it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Diedrich, thank you again, sir. All right, you're excused. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. People call Mr. Bill Boziak.
You may. Actually, Madam Reporter, what's your time availability this afternoon? Perfect, thank you. All right, Ms. Clark, People's next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Mr. Bill Boziak.
Please, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you may give will cause nothing before this court to be the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat on the witness stand and state before your first and last name for the record.
William J. Bodziak, B-O-D-Z-I-A-K.
Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Boziak.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you previously testified as a qualified expert in shoe print analysis, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that your specialty, sir?
Yes, it is.
Have you written a book about that subject?
Yes, I have.
Now, as a shoe print examiner, sir, is it one of your duties to be able to distinguish between impressions that are from shoes versus impressions that are not from shoes?
Yes, it is.
When you train other footprint examiners, do you, sir?
Yes, I do.
And when you, in the course of that training, do you test them in any way to cause them to make the distinction between what is a shoe print and what is not a shoe print?
There is one, occasionally in a class, I will give a pre-prepared test along with other comparison test type materials, where I have 2 impressions of shoes, which are obviously shoe impressions. They're the entire full shoe print and are recognizable as such. And I'll make a 3rd impression with something that is not a shoe, such as maybe the rung of a ladder with some ribbed patterns or some other material. And I will give them questions that don't tell them it's shoe prints, but kind of infer that it is, and just to see what their answers are. And a lot of them mistakenly assume it's a shoe impression.
Now, has it ever happened to you, sir, that an impression has been shown to you in which you cannot say for sure that it is a shoe impression or not?
All of the time, yes.
In that situation, sir, what opinion, if any, do you render?
If I am questioned specifically about a particular mark or pattern or imprint or impression or whatever that person calls it, on an item, and I cannot determine that it is or isn't a shoe impression because it's so small or partial or faint, I will say it is of too limited a value to make a positive determination.
And why is... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, if it's obviously something that has enough detail where I can say positively what it is, then depending if it's a shoe impression or not, I will proceed in the appropriate fashion.
And why is that?
Why?
Why do you not make a determination regarding the possibilities of whether something is a shoe print when you're not sure?
Okay, because impressions of all objects, whether they're fingerprints, ears, noses, shoes, fabric, rungs of a ladder, no matter what they are, there are impressions of varying quality and varying density. And so if you have an impression that you can hardly see, that's very partial, it's very faint, where you can't see reliable detail, then more than likely you're not going to be able to make a valid comparison of it. You might be guessing to try to presume what it is, and it just does not contain enough detail for sufficient comparison or a meaningful comparison. And it would be best not to go beyond what information that you can see in that impression. On the other spectrum, you may have a very, very clear impression, and all of the detail is very crisp and clear, and you can make a very valid comparison.
Then when there is insufficient detail to characterize an imprint as a shoe print, in your opinion, sir, is it scientifically inappropriate to say it could be consistent with a shoe print or might be a shoe print?
If I were asked to make a comparison of an imprint, I would either be asked to compare it with a shoe, in which case I may be able to make a comparison if there's enough detail. If there were no shoe, it was just an imprint by itself, then I would render what opinion I could, but I would only render it based on what I could see with absolute certainty. If it was too faint, I wouldn't render an opinion because it could be misleading.
Now, you previously testified that you did an analysis on an envelope,
That's correct.
and that envelope was found at the crime scene, correct?
That's correct.
And you saw photographs of that envelope as it was found at the crime scene?
I saw photographs and the envelope itself.
Now, after your testimony, sir, in this case, did you see more photographs, one of which was of a paper found at the crime scene at Bundy?
Yes, I did.
Now, after Dr. Lee's testimony, did you go back and look more closely at the photograph of that paper found at the crime scene for the first time?
Yes, I did.
Without telling us what your opinion is, sir, did you form an opinion whether the impressions on the envelope and paper found at the crime scene were created by footwear?
Yes, I did.
And did we prepare a graphic display to demonstrate the basis for that opinion?
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Robertson? Is this new?
Yes.
622.
Thank you.
Mr. Farrell, I'm sorry, Mr. Farrell, can I see that real briefly? Thank you. Ms. Clark,
622, Your Honor?
622.
Thank you. All right, sir. Maybe you need to step down to demonstrate to the jury what you're going to testify, what you're going to tell them. Why don't we start, well, where would you like to start, sir, the paper or the envelope?
On your side is fine.
All right, and on my side, for the record, Your Honor, as you face this board, there are two photographs to the left that are the envelope, and on the right is one photograph of a piece of paper.
Yes.
Sir, if you would indicate to us, does this appear to be the envelope found at the crime scene at Bundy, which you examined?
Yes, it is.
And could you point to the area, you recall Dr. Lee's testimony concerning this item, do you not, sir?
I saw portions of his testimony, not the complete testimony.
Okay. Do you recall the portion of his testimony where he indicated that parallel lines in the upper right-hand corner of this envelope that I'm designating here with my finger were consistent with a shoe print?
I recall him not stating it was a shoe print, but that he couldn't eliminate the possibility that it could be.
Now, can you tell us, sir, what you see in those imprints that caused you to form an opinion concerning what might have been the source of those imprints?
Sure. On the left side of this exhibit, at the top is a picture of the envelope which contained the glasses. And this picture is as the envelope was observed at the scene. And below it is a picture of the envelope which is enlarged to a natural size, a natural true size. This was taken by me in the LAPD laboratory, and these are orientated in the same fashion so that on the right top corner of the envelope is a very small impression. And looking at the natural size, if I put my thumb next to it, is actually about half the size of my thumb impression. It is that small. Within that impression are several parallel lines which have sort of a zigzag to them. In other words, the lines themselves don't zigzag, but it's like if you drew a straight line and there were little motions going left and right as you go down that line.
And when you say half the size of your thumb imprint, can you estimate for the jury, sir, how big that is in terms of inches or something?
The area here is perhaps a ½ inch by, well, maybe a 3/4 inch square area. About 3/4 of an inch in each direction
All right,
would encompass this impression.
Thank you, sir. One moment. I'm going to ask you to put this picture on the Elmo so that the jury can see it better. I think it's difficult to see on the board.
Is that the same photo? I don't believe that. Well, never mind.
All right. Can you see the area that you've been discussing with us in this photograph, sir, on the screen?
Yes, I can.
And can you describe for the jury the location of those parallel lines you're talking about?
Yes, it's at the top right of the envelope. I'll wait till it gets back in focus so
Yeah.
we can see it.
There we go.
Okay, I think it's still a little out of focus. Okay, that's still out of focus. It's very. Can we bring it into focus?
Can you focus a little better? No, that's as good as it gets on the Elmo.
Okay, well, just in the area of the arrow, which the arrow is pointing to, there are several very close lines. You can't really see the detail I would like to show in this particular picture, but those lines in general are parallel, and there's about 6 to 8 of them, and they encompass an area about 3/4 of an inch long by 3/4 of an inch wide, which is less than the surface of most fingerprints, thumbprints. And within each line, even though each line runs in a straight line, there is some interruption in the line, a different pattern within that line itself. And you can't see that in this particular enlargement, but if you were to view this particular picture, you could see that very clearly. Or, better yet, we could use the enlargement from Mr. Lee's chart, perhaps, which was enlarged tremendously, and I think that might be the best way to see it.
All right, why don't I get that, sir?
All right, 1338B.
All right, see the area circled on this exhibit?
Yes, I do. Now, this exhibit is an extremely enlarged area. It's enlarged so much it's also starting to get out of focus, which is what happens when you take a picture of an object and then try to really make it big. But this area that's circled represents this thumbprint size area of the envelope in the top right corner.
Referring to People 622.
And you can see there's a number of parallel lines, but those lines aren't straight, narrow lines. They have little misdirections in them, which are characteristic of that line. In other words, they all have that same characteristic. It's not just an accident. It's reflective to some degree of the item which caused that to come in, which came into contact with that envelope.
Now, is there something about the features that you've just described of those parallel lines that is significant to you in terms of your determination as to whether or not it's a shoe print?
Yes, in my opinion, it's not a shoe print for a number of reasons. First of all, this has a non-printing area completely surrounding it. So in order for a shoe to make that print, it would have to have, it could only be a situation where there was perhaps one drop of blood on the bottom of the shoe, and that's why it was limited and didn't make a print around it. In other words, if the shoe was totally bloody, or the surface of the bottom of the shoe was totally bloody, there would be prints extending out because a shoe print isn't that small. It's much bigger. So there would only be one scenario when you could have a shoe make an isolated, literally an island of an impression by itself. Secondly,
Wait, let me stop you right there and ask you a couple questions, if I may, sir. You've seen photographs of this crime scene, have you not?
yes,
Would you characterize it as a very bloody crime scene?
very bloody.
And the shoe prints that you saw going down the walkway at Bundy, did you see basically all of the features, no, but most of the features of the heel and sole in many of those shoe prints?
There were heels and soles of a lot of shoe prints at that scene, yes. The Bruno Magli design.
And does that indicate to you that those shoes picked up a fair amount of blood at the crime scene?
The pictures that I saw of the crime scene were so covered with blood on the walking areas that you could not physically cross them without getting blood fully on the bottoms of your shoes.
So the scenario you've just depicted for us of one drop of blood on a small portion of the shoe creating that imprint on the envelope, based on your knowledge of the crime scene and the photographs you've seen, would that be possible in this case?
Objection calls for speculation, no foundation.
Sustained.
Based on what you've seen in the crime scene photographs in this case, sir, can you...
Foundation regarding crime scenes, counsel. Foundation crime scenes.
Did you see all the photographs of the Bundy crime scene, sir?
I reviewed several volumes of them, yes.
And having reviewed those volumes of the Bundy crime scene photographs, can you tell us, based on what you saw, whether it was possible for someone to step in that crime scene committing the murders and come away with one drop of blood on one discrete area of the shoe to create the imprint you see in Defense 1338B?
Objection calls for speculation, vague as to time.
Oh.
The only possible way that could happen would be at the very onset of the crime, the first drops of blood that were spilled, where one of those drops may have fallen to the ground. Whatever contacted that blood at that point was limited in size because there was only one drop in that area, and then it was transferred to this paper. I still don't, for other reasons we haven't gotten into yet, believe it is a shoe print. In my opinion, it's not. But whatever made this isolated island of an impression could have done it under that particular scenario. After there was more blood at the scene, it would not be possible to have a shoe or any object make contact with that ground surface and then leave this isolated impression.
All right, so this opinion so far is based solely on the features of the parallel lines that you've seen in that pattern.
So far, just on the size of it and the fact that the impression does not extend outward, it's isolated just like an island. So the blood on whatever object touched it would also have to be restricted to that size.
Now, these parallel lines, sir, are they typical features that you would expect to see in a shoe print?
No, they're not. There's three basic ways that the bottom of a shoe can have a design implanted into it. And that design is always implanted through a molding process. But the mold has to be made. And in making the mold, and again, I'm pointing to this for demonstration purposes, but I would like to point out that this very, very tiny print where the lines are extremely close together is what, in reality, I am talking about. The lines, the design of these lines would have to be put in there one of three ways, either through a routing device, something that would actually chew up the metal, where they have a metal block before they make the mold and they chew it out into the design of a shoe. And that would have to be an extremely fine tool, and you typically don't see them using fine metal bits that way because when they get too small, they break, and it's not a productive way of trying to make a shoe. There's other ways to implant small design like this on a shoe. The second way would be through stippling. Stippling would involve a metal die that's about the size of this wooden piece on the top of the pointer, and actually in most cases maybe half the diameter of this pointer, the wooden piece. And on the tip of it, it will have a design that they want to implant in the mold. And they will take a hammer and put this die on the mold and strike real hard with the hammer. And that will transfer the pattern into the mold, which in turn becomes part of the shoe when it's molded. And what happens is, when they use these dies, they, on purpose, turn them each time they strike. And they wind up with more of a texture. And there would be no way that they would either try or could accomplish to get these perfectly parallel lines by making it that way. The third method is through chemical etching, and that's more for texturing, like the texture on the face of this Elmo projector or the dashboard of your car, and that's a very, very fine pattern. It would not have parallel lines at all. So understanding those three ways that designs are implanted into molds, I don't see this as a shoe design. There are very fine patterns that may be this fine, but not, they will be of the texturing or stippling type or siping, but not of a pre-molded, routed out type, where they would be parallel.
Is there any other reason, other than the features of those parallel lines themselves and the type of design it is, that causes you to conclude that this is not a shoe print?
Well, based on all of those things, particularly the little misdirections in each of these parallel lines, I'm of the opinion that because of all of those things, that this is not and could not be a shoe impression.
And Let me show you a shoe print from Bundy. This is what? People's what? People's 45I? All right, up on the elbow now is People's 45I. You've testified previously to the identification of this as a size 12 Bruno Magli at Bundy.
Yes, I have.
Do you see that there is a distinct line around the area that is the heel and the area that is the sole?
Yes, there is, and I testified to the borders and those characteristics in my prior testimony.
Okay. Do you see any such border in the imprint shown on People 622 or on Defendant's 1338B?
No, there is none.
Does that play any part in your determination that this is not a shoe print?
Well, it goes along the same lines as to what I was explaining, that this is actually an isolated mark or print where there is nothing around it. So it's isolated in itself and would not be typical of a shoe that has picked up blood on its entire surface.
Now, the Defense 1338B, can you tell us how much magnification there is to create that enlargement?
This isn't my enlargement, so I don't know the magnification. I'm guessing that it's probably 4 or 5 times at least, but again, it's hard for me to do that here without making measurements and so forth, and it's not my enlargement, but it's a very enlarged area.
Now, is there a problem, sir, in your opinion, in using enlarged photographs without using them next to the natural size photograph of the object?
As long as they're represented properly, enlargements are very good for conveying smaller images to groups of people, such as in the courtroom, to show things that they otherwise couldn't see. However, that should be qualified as being an enlargement, and in this case, either a scale should be used or, and I believe it was, a natural size photograph with the understanding that this is being used for illustrative purposes, but the actual impression is this small.
And in that regard, sir, if you look only at the enlargement without any discussion about how much enlarged it is, do the parallel lines appear to be farther apart in the enlargement on 1338B than they do in People 622, which is the natural size of the item?
Overruled. Overruled.
If, in fact, a person viewing this were to mistakenly look at this and believe this was the natural size of the print, then, of course, it would look more like a shoe impression with parallel lines or some type of design, because the size has now been enlarged, and it comes into a whole different class of shoes and shoe designs. However, as long as it's represented properly, that wouldn't be a problem for demonstration purposes.
Now, you spoke a little bit about the fact that this is not, this imprint does not appear to you to be anything like a shoe design that you've seen in the past. Have you seen many shoe designs, sir?
Yes, I've, since about 1986, I guess, I've managed the shoe reference collection. I've been to many shoe manufacturers, I've been to shoe fairs and conventions where they sell the equipment that makes the shoes and molds, and I've never seen a shoe design this fine that was intentionally, that was routed out in parallel lines with these little designs within it. Anything that would be of that size would be done with either etching or stippling.
Okay. Does the FBI have some kind of a computer that references all different kinds of shoes?
We have a computer and a hard copy reference collection of shoe designs.
Do you attend any conventions where you learn about new kinds of ways of making shoes and different shoe patterns?
I've gone to many manufacturers, and every 3 years there's a Footwear International convention. I've also been to shoe shows where they'll maybe have 1,600 booths with shoes from all over the world being distributed, explicitly for the purpose of seeing if there was any way we could expand our reference material on shoe design.
Now, if you would, sir, would you address your comments to the piece of paper? And let me get the showing you, sir, Defendant's 1338A. You see the area that's circled in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall observing Dr. Lee's testimony concerning this item?
Yes, I do.
And do you recall what he said with respect to the area circled in blue in Defense 1338A?
I'm not sure. I may have seen it on a news clip and didn't hear his voice, so I don't remember what he specifically said about it, other than...
All right, next question.
Do you recall him characterizing this as something that could be a shoe print?
Overruled.
My recollection is that in the bits and pieces of his testimony, he was referring to this as an imprint, I believe is the terminology he used, and that he couldn't say it was definitely a shoe impression.
And what is your opinion concerning this area circled in blue on Defense 1338A?
For many of the same reasons which I mentioned on the envelope, this pattern is very, very small, and as well as the area that pattern encompasses, and it is not something I recognize or believe to be a shoe impression. If I could further explain that the defense exhibit, I'm sorry, I don't remember the number,
1338A?
1338A, is enlarged above the natural size of the piece of paper. On the right side of this chart,
People 622?
yes, is an approximate natural size. And when I say approximate, the photograph was taken at a slight angle as opposed to directly overhead. But we measured the distance from the concrete barrier that the railing is on and this intersection. And this is actually about the width of a half a tile, which are 11.5 to 12 inches square. And so looking at this is a pretty close estimate of the size of this actual piece of paper. As a secondary reference of size, I looked at the toe of this shoe, and even in a very big foot, being gracious, this would maybe be at this point 3 to 3.5 inches across up near the toe. So this piece of paper is approximately 5 by 4 inches. It's not a rectangle, but it's somewhere in that size. The area that contains the impression, when transferred over to this, will now only be a couple inches wide. And if this were a shoe that stepped on it, it would have to either be a tiny shoe or something would have had to interfere with the reproduction of part of that design. But because of the other reasons I mentioned, I do not believe this is a shoe imprint either.
What do you mean by tiny shoe?
A kid's shoe, a very tiny shoe, because it would only be a couple inches wide. If we're here confining it to the area that's been drawn on this exhibit.
And then again, in this, with respect to this little piece of paper as well, is it your opinion, sir, that it was not a shoe print?
That's correct.
Objection, the testimony represents the shoe.
Next question.
All right, once you determined, sir, that shoes were not responsible for making this imprint, was your work done?
Yes, it was, as I was requested to make comparisons of these various items for the purpose of examining shoe prints. And in fact, on the envelope, there was, which I testified to before, a partial impression that was consistent with the Bruno Magli design at the edge of that shoe. Even though I may see other marks, whether they be spatter or streaks or wavy lines that I don't think are shoe impressions, once I determined it wasn't a shoe impression, I wouldn't pursue it any further.
And by contrast, by way of contrast, sir, on People 622, on the upper photograph on the left-hand side, there's an area that you designated that did appear to you to be a shoe print?
It did, and that was one I testified to before in my prior testimony, and it was consistent with the Bruno Magli design.
And did you see a border in that shoe, in the area that you did indicate was a shoe print?
Yes, as you face this chart, along the top edge is the border of the edge of that shoe.
Now, after you determined, sir, that the imprints circled on the defense exhibits in the 1338A and B, that is on the envelope and on the piece of paper, were not shoe prints, did you turn them over to someone else for examination?
Not immediately,
And why is that?
because I wouldn't normally think there was any other examination to be conducted. There was no other material or requests to which to conduct an additional exam. It was out of my area of expertise.
And when you say out of your area of expertise, what do you mean?
Well, whatever other marks or splatter might be on this, if there were other questions that the submitter of these items had, then they would direct those questions to people in areas of expertise that they believe were able to answer those questions.
All right,
It
and
wouldn't be the area of shoe impression.
because you found none.
That's correct.
And so you eventually did, though, send the photographs of the envelope and the piece of paper to someone else in the FBI?
After learning that this very small fingerprint-sized impression that I first testified to today
On the envelope?
on the envelope was possibly going to be referred to as a shoe impression, I took another look at it and thought there's a possibility it might be a fabric impression. The other possibility, which I recognized when I first examined it in the laboratory here, was that it might also be some marks from the irregular surface of the concrete tiles at the Bundy location. But because I did not believe it's a shoe impression, I didn't pursue it at that point. But when the issue came back up again, I referred it to Douglas Diedrich.
While we're talking about the envelope and the paper, sir, do you recall some testimony by Dr. Lee concerning a blood drop that he claimed was not present in the June 13th photographs, but did appear in later photographs that you
Counsel, would
examined?
you rephrase that question, please? Rephrase the question. Definitive of this phrase.
Do you recall the testimony of Dr. Lee in which he testified that there was a blood drop he observed in later photographs that he did not observe in the June 13th photographs of the envelope.
Yes, I do.
And directing your attention, sir, to People 622. First of all, the lower photograph of the envelope. Do you see a blood drop that I'm pointing to that has initials next to it?
Yes, I do.
Can you locate that blood drop in the photograph taken on June the 13th that is right above this one?
Yes, it's right here.
For the record, the witness has pointed to a spot on the June 13th photograph. Come on, I'm going to ask the witness to circle it. Would you circle that, please, sir? Thank you. Now, can you tell us, sir, if you see a difference in the appearance of the blood drop on the envelope from the photograph taken June 13th from the appearance of that blood drop in the envelope, from a later dated photograph?
Well, of course, the coloring is different, and that's just a variable in photography with different film and processing. This is a little redder than this is, and also blood, as it dries, if there are thick areas of blood, it will darken in the thick areas initially. But this particular spot here also has something else that's interfering with the ability to see it in its entirety, and that is what's known as flash bounce. Or it could...
Sustain.
Sir, what experience do you have in the area of photography and the interpretation of crime scene photographs?
I've had extensive training at the FBI laboratory in that area, both general photography and forensic photography. I use photography on a daily basis in my work and work with our specialized photographic team.
And is there some inclusion in your book concerning crime scene photography?
Yes, there's a whole chapter on it.
And in that book, do you describe various methods and procedures that should be used to take the best crime scene photographs?
Yes, I do.
And do you yourself, when you go to crime scenes, take photographs in order to capture the image of shoe prints?
In some instances I do, in some instances there may already be a photographer yourself.
And for how long have you been doing that, sir?
Since the beginning, maybe after my training ended in 1976.
All right. And so can you explain to us, sir, what you mean by flash bounce?
Flash bounce is something that we're all familiar with, because if you take pictures of people at different occasions, particularly if they're standing in front of a mirror, you get that bright reflection of the flash when you get your film back, and it kind of ruins the picture. Or perhaps a person's wearing glasses, and if you were to take a photograph straight on at me, and the light were to hit the glass perfectly straight, it would reflect back into the lens perfectly straight, and this would be what's known as a hot spot. And that's caused by the light bouncing back off of this particular blood, which is somewhat glossy, and coming back into the camera lens in a straight angle, and actually overexposing the film at that point and causing it to wash out or to become so light that it's hard to see. In addition, this is also sometimes encountered if you just had natural light hitting it at the right angle, where it would bounce back into the lens of the camera and do the same thing, such as sunlight, bright sunlight.
So when you use a flash, sir, and you're using it outside in maybe a dark area, if you don't capture part of the sky, can you tell whether it's night or day based on just looking at the photograph?
World.
I'm sorry, could you re-ask that?
Yes, if you are standing outside taking a photograph with a flash, and you're taking it in an area where it's dark, if you do not capture part of the sky in your photograph, all you capture is that dark area that you're taking a picture of with the flash. When you just look at only the photograph, can you tell if it's night or day?
In some instances, you would be probably able to show a number of reasons why it was night, and in other cases, particularly if you're like at twilight or as the sun's beginning to come up in between dark and light. Other factors would be existing light, the aperture of the camera, the speed of the film. There's a lot of variables. I think you'd have to judge it on a case-by-case basis.
So you may or may not be able to tell whether it's day or night if you just look at the photograph under the conditions I described.
Anybody know what
I wouldn't want to
aperture
venture to guess. You have to
science
go
is?
through in all cases.
It's not a trick question, I just need to know. Where's my camera? Or GLaDOS is another hint. Don't Google it. You either know or you don't. It's from the game Portal. Portal!
Did you, sir, examine photographs of Ron Goldman's jeans to determine whether you saw...
And I wasn't texting while I was driving, silly. I drive my daughter to work. I got a perfectly capable adult child sitting right beside me. I was telling her things like, it's spelled Z-A-C-H. She was typing while I was driving.
Anything that looked like a shoe print impression on those jeans?
Yes. I examined the original jeans in our laboratory in Washington, D.C., and I caused all of these photographs.
You're right,
to be taken,
Christy. You're
in
right.
my
It
practice
is.
under
You
my
got me
direction in
there.
October of '94.
Aperture Science is also from a
This one
video
is what's known
game.
as a copy shot. It's a color shot where you're attempting to show the actual color and general features of a pair of jeans, and it's more for record-keeping purposes and just to show its general appearance. To the right are two photographs which are enlarged to an actual natural size. They're overlapping. In other words, the top of the one on the bottom actually overlaps with the bottom portion of the top. And they are representative of the front side of the right leg of the jeans of Ron Goldman. And the reason they don't have the blue appearance is because a filter was used when taking these. And that filter was used specifically to drop the blue color, the blue background of the jeans, and to show the red coloring of the blood impressions on there with much greater detail. You can see all of these same markings on the colored copy, but they're much easier in a natural size enlargement with the filter dropping the blue color to look at for purposes of discussion and examination.
Now, when you examined the areas in the circles shown on this chart, sir, did you form some opinion as to whether or not they were shoe prints?
There were two impressions which I referred to in my prior reports, which stemmed out of my examination in October of 1994, that referred to a heel print on the lower left leg and a partial footwear impression on the right leg. And they were consistent with the Bruno Magli design, but they really, because of the absorbability of the cotton fabric and the fact that there was obviously, this wasn't made on a flat surface, but with a leg inside of the jeans, there wouldn't be an even stripe. Because of those factors, the detail was very limited, and I wasn't able to make any more of a detailed comparison. I did examine the jeans, front and back, both legs, for other markings which might be shoe impressions. I observed a number of markings of almost every describable size and shape along the front and back of these jeans. Some of the best ones which are depicted in the right pants leg here on this chart, but none of them, in my opinion, were footwear impressions. If they were, I would have pursued looking for that design of shoe, as I did with the case of the Bruno Magli.
Now, you said you saw a partial shoe print that you testified to earlier and characterized as a Bruno Magli. Do you see that area of the right leg depicted in the photograph in People 619?
Yes, it's down here, the lower portion. It's actually intersecting the circle.
For the record, the lower circle.
It's actually crossing the lower circle on the right pants leg. And then the heel impression is just into the edge of the lower portion of the left pants leg.
All right, and for the record, the witness was referring to the color photograph of the jeans overall. Now, other than those two areas, sir, when you examined these pants, did you examine them with the thought in mind of looking for any shoe prints, not just those that would be Bruno Magli?
Yes, I did.
And other than the two that you have indicated to us just now on the lower right and left leg, did you find any other imprints that you would characterize as shoe print impressions?
No, I didn't.
The areas that are circled on these overall of the jeans and indicated on the black and white photographs next to the picture of the color picture of the jeans, did you examine those?
Yes, I examined, well, these circles were made by Agent Diedrich. And I examined the entire surface of the front and back of the jeans, which included the areas within the circles.
And you passed them on to Agent Diedrich, as you've testified, because you found they were not shoe prints?
No, at the time, because they weren't shoe prints, and I didn't think they were shoe prints, I did not pursue it because there was nothing more relevant to my examination. However, when the testimony of Dr. Lee came to my attention that these, and I believe he referred to them again, as he did everything, as imprints, could have been shoe impressions, then I referred that at that point to Agent Diedrich.
Okay. Now, why did you determine that these were not shoe prints, sir?
Well, they don't have a border. That's the most primary reason with regard to the ones on the jeans. I don't know, is it permissible for me to demonstrate by taking my shoe off?
Yes.
Taking my left shoe, which has a nice sharp heel to it, and it's a raised heel, as did the Bruno Magli shoes and as do many shoes. And even if it didn't have a raised heel, it would also have an edge on the sole, but I'll just use the heel for demonstration purposes. And using my left arm as a representative, although it's not nearly as big, of the pants legs that would have a leg or an arm in them, if this heel was covered with blood, and as shoes walk through blood, the blood, excess blood, gets squeezed out if there were weight, where this was now 150, 200 pounds on it, or there were kicks, that edge would be very crisp and clear, very dominant, and would show up in these impressions. In addition, looking within these impressions, the lines that are parallel do not always run parallel to one another. For instance, in this particular one here, there's a few lines that are parallel at this point, a very small area, maybe 1.5 inches square, and now there's some going in a different direction, and now there's some crossing over here going back in this another direction. There's some going this way, and they're all very little partial impressions. Here's two lines that just kind of go out from one another, and that's more typical. The indistinct nature of this imprint, the changing of directions of the parallel lines, the very partial nature of the impressions, the lack of a border, these are typical of imprints of fabric or material and not imprints of shoes.
Now, for the record, the witness is referring to the upper right-hand photograph as you face the board.
Yes.
And that was the lower circle area.
Yes.
Thank you. But, sir, doesn't it appear that there is a sharp line here in the lower circle, and I'm gesturing to the arc that seems to be towards the right side of that circle inside it?
There's that line, there's a line here, there's a line over here with another one next to it. There's some curved lines of all different shapes and sizes around this. In my opinion, this has nothing to do with these parallel lines and is not the edge of the heel. It would be much more effective. Parallel lines within, if this were hypothetically a heel, the parallel lines within it are not running straight across it, as any shoe design manufacturer would have. They wouldn't have the heel with the lines running crooked. It's just not aesthetically something that they would do in the design and manufacture of that shoe. And these do not even run true to this hypothetical border. But we see this kind of a line all around the jeans, and not being there, I can't account for what that is, but I do not recognize it as a shoe impression or the edge of a heel.
Okay. Now, the parallel lines that you see in the circles on this exhibit, People 619, did you compare those to the parallel lines shown on the envelope and paper?
Yes.
Do they appear to be from the same source?
No.
And tell us why.
The size of these lines and the broadness of them are just totally different in size and features than the very, very small lines which have almost a zigzag to them that were on the fingerprint size impression on the envelope and the wavy pattern in the piece of triangular piece of paper.
So, however, sir, what would you say about the similarity of the parallel lines in the envelope and the piece of paper?
They were consistent with one another within the range of detail that I could see, and in the assessment of them as far as it goes with regard to shoe impressions. They were both totally different, and without any doubt, totally different than these parallel lines that crop up on various places on the right leg of Ron Goldman's jeans.
Okay. So the source of the imprint on the jeans is different from the source of the imprint on the paper and envelope?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you mentioned something about kicking. If you were just kicking someone, maybe with the bottom of your foot, you indicated that you would still leave a border that would be indicative of a shoe print?
Absolutely, and more so than just standing on the person or lightly touching your foot against the person.
Sir, did you hear testimony that Dr. Lee, informing his opinions concerning the impressions on the jeans and on the envelope and paper, did not make any test impressions of the jeans or Ron Goldman's shirt?
Yes, I did.
Do you have an opinion as to whether it is scientifically correct or appropriate to form an opinion concerning the source of an imprint without having made any test impressions?
Yes, and I write about this extensively and teach about it in the lectures I give to examiners with regard to shoe impressions or sock impressions. But the print that's made by a shoe or any object cannot be perceived by looking at that object itself. In other words, you can look at the fabric on my sleeve, and you can look at it with a magnifying glass, but because of its three-dimensional qualities, you could not determine what the exact pattern would look like in a test impression, particularly when you get to like fabrics or like shoe designs. There's no way to perceive that three-dimensional, very, very minute difference in the variations that occur from shoes or fabrics of similar designs. For that reason, even in the preliminary examination stages, it's absolutely essential to make test impressions of shoes or fabric or any other impression materials for comparison purposes. It's the only way that you can make a valid comparison.
Now, the test impressions you're talking about making, are they made with the identicator?
The identicator is one of many materials that I use in making test impressions of known shoes. It initially started as a source of inkless fingerprints, and there are a lot of places in the country use inkless fingerprints. So if you apply for a job and have to be fingerprinted, you don't have to go through the messy ink that you used to go through. I found out about it many years ago. I found out that the Air Force was using it for full barefoot prints of their pilots, because if their pilots were killed in an accident, they would have to sometimes resort to the ridge detail on their feet, because sometimes being in boots, they were the only preserved parts of their body, and they would find that they had to take prints of their full feet in addition to their hands. So they made a much larger pad, bigger than fingerprint size, and we started ordering it, and it's very good for making preliminary comparisons, and in some cases for actually the examination quality, the final product, it actually surpasses other materials in a lot of cases, depending on the shoe or the material.
Now, imprint analysis is that a pretty old science, sir?
It goes back as far as you can read in the forensic literature.
In order to make a valid test impression to compare to a bloody imprint, do you need to make that test impression in blood?
No, and I'd also point that out. That's a fallacy, that you have to reproduce the exact set of circumstances. What you're trying to do when you make a test impression is to reproduce with as much quality as you can all of the features of the shoe or fabric or whatever you're trying to compare. And that is your standard. That is the idealistically best detail that you can get with all of the features exhibited in that known standard that you're comparing. Then you look to the crime scene impressions, and whether they're shoes or fabrics or whatever, those always, almost always, have far less detail and do not reproduce as well, because they're not being made as test impressions. They're being made under adverse conditions where the receiving material may be absorbent, like these cotton jeans, or the sidewalk may be very rough and coarse. And so you don't expect to see all of the detail in those kinds of impressions, but you can take the maximum amount of detail in the standard test impression and then compare the respective parts to see if there's any likenesses or differences. If you went and tried to use blood and the exact materials, you would have inferior standards for comparison. You would wind up with a whole another set of problems in that comparison that had nothing to do with your original intended examination.
Now, when you determined that these were not shoe prints, you ultimately gave them to Mr. Diedrich for examination?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you have in the FBI a blood spatter analyst?
I believe we had one. At one time, I think we had two, and I think one of them transferred back out to the field.
You did not give those impressions that you eliminated as being shoe print. The imprints that you determined were not shoe prints. You gave them to Mr. Diedrich. You did not give them to the blood spatter analyst.
That's correct.
Why not?
I had observed the pictures of, and I had examined the jeans, and I also had pictures of the jeans that you see here. And I had also seen enlarged photographs of Ron Goldman's shirt. It was very bloodied, and it had the blood in the picture caused the ribbed design on the shirt to show up very vividly. And so when looking at that, I noticed a striking similarity between that design, even in that smaller photograph, when looking at this. And for that reason, thought the first person that should look at it is Doug Diedrich for doing a fabric analysis.
Is the science of imprint comparison distinct from blood spatter analysis?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us why?
Well, they're like apples and oranges. Imprints or impressions are physical contact between one object and another. And in that physical contact, there's a transfer of both class characteristics with regard to a shoe, the characteristics that all shoes of that size and design share, as well as wear characteristics and accidental characteristics. And the same would apply for any other imprint, whether it be clothing or whatever. Those general characteristics would be class characteristics that all of those share. And they also, if there were tears or something on a fabric, you could also have accidental characteristics. With regard to blood spatter, there's actually, I work with blood spatter in the sense that I see it on evidence, and there's, as I understand it from my training in the area, this area, there's two areas.
All right, let's wind it up.
Why don't you
Next
please
question.
answer, sir?
Next question.
Then, is it your opinion, sir, based on what you've told us thus far, that a blood spatter analyst would not be the one to compare a fabric impression in blood to determine what the source of that impression was?
Not unless they had also had training in fabric impressions or shoe prints or whatever they were comparing.
Okay, and training in blood spatter analysis is not required or even helpful in being able to determine the source of an imprint made in blood.
Misleading.
Would blood spatter analysis training assist someone in being able to determine whether a particular item made an imprint in blood?
Not if it was an impression or an imprint, no.
I was going to move on to another area. You want me to go ahead and start?
No, let's take a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you with
I
regard
told
to
you
the
we were
case.
going to get into the
Don't
next
conduct
one.
any
No,
deliberations until the matter has
I
been
didn't.
submitted to you. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 9 o'clock
Oh,
tomorrow
I was
morning.
wrong.
We'll take a brief recess to clear the jury, then I'll see counsel in chambers on the record, please. All right, thank you.
I told you
Back
we
on
were
the
going
record in the,
to
Simpsons.
start that 12-minute video. Instead, we finished that 12-minute video. We are on video number 458.
The matter, Mr. Simpson is again present before the court with counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Blazier, Mr. Neufeld, Mr. Scheck. People are represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Darden, and Mr. Goldberg. Good morning, counsel.
Very, very briefly.
All right, we're about ready to reconvene with Mr. Bodziak and conclude his testimony.
Yes, Your Honor, I have him here. We're ready to go. And we will conclude, I believe, in half an hour with direct.
All right.
I wanted to raise with the court the issue of the Stockdale tapes. I had a conversation with Mr. Shapiro this morning. He was very helpful in explaining to me the circumstances of the Stockdale tape. I have in my possession now from Mr. Shapiro a copy of the affidavits filed under 1054.7 with the court. I have not had a chance to read them, but counsel has already told me what's in them. And it is the bottom line that the tape is no longer in existence. The issue then now to be litigated is what is the remedy for the people. Ms. Stockdale is not an adequate substitute for the tape itself, which would...
Right. I think if you peruse the affidavits, my recollection from my last reading of them was that there is a transcript that was prepared.
Right, that's not going to... That will not satisfy. What the people wanted from the tape is the defendant's demeanor, his tone of voice, how he sounded. The words are almost irrelevant to what is more important to us, which is the sound of the voice, the tone and the demeanor of the voice. And that's why Ms. Stockdale herself, even if she could give us a verbatim memory of the words, would be inadequate. We needed to hear and let the jury hear his voice, and we cannot do that. So,
Okay.
I mean, that's the issue to be framed. I assume
So-
I'm sorry. I assume...
I'm just sort of anxious to get started.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to say, Your Honor. Why don't we just get started and calendar this argument for some future time, not too long in the future.
Okay.
And tell me the court's pleasure in that, and we're ready.
All right.
That's acceptable, Judge.
All right, thank you, counsel. Because it appears that if we're going to finish with Mr. Bodziak today, my understanding, Ms. Clark, is that that is the last major witness you intend on offering in rebuttal. Is that correct? All right, then we may have some additional time on the court day then to discuss those other issues. Also, as a matter of planning for scheduling, counsel, I've received requests from the interested parties regarding the Jewish holidays that are upcoming later in this month. And as soon as I determine certain sundown times, I'll issue a modified schedule as far as that's concerned. And I think we need to set the record straight about our conversations in chambers yesterday at the conclusion of the court day concerning the concerns that one of our jurors had about her financial situation as it was impacted by jury service. And that has been concluded successfully to her satisfaction without the necessity of the expenditure of any county funds, so that is a non-issue at
What?
this point.
They didn't pay her? They didn't give her money?
Sandy. Yes. All right. All right, we're ready to proceed?
May I make one inquiry?
Yes.
Is the court already in possession of the memo from Mr. Whitehurst and the transcript that Mr. Neufeld provided us with of Mr. Whitehurst?
I believe so.
Okay. I had copies brought down to furnish to the court. Mr. Blazier and I discussed the fact that it would be most expeditious if we could give this to the court to let it begin reading even in advance of the interview scheduled for tomorrow.
All right, I have the memo. I don't believe I have was given a copy of the four-page per page transcript. I think we copied it, but I don't think I had a copy of it.
Is that all right, lady? All right.
All right.
May I give it to the court?
Your Honor, there was
To Mrs. Robertson. Thank you.
an order by the court for both sides not to copy these documents. At this point, they seem to be widely disseminated. I wonder if we could have some relief from that so other members of both sides can be more convenient.
All right, it
to review.
appears that that is being publicly disseminated in the news media, so I have no objection to the council making whatever copies they feel are necessary to make preparations for the argument.
Thank you, Your
May I
Honor.
ask that the court order us to furnish a copy to the court and to each other so that we're all... In view of the fact that there may be some litigation by some party, I don't even know who, I would appreciate it if the court would issue an order indicating that we should furnish to you copies of the transcript and the memo and to share those copies with each other.
All right, well, it's been offered to the court. There's been no objection, so I assume.
You guys are not a problem.
All right. Hold on, let me finish my discussion with Ms. Clark.
Mr. Yeltsin reminds me that the court did order it in chambers to furnish copies to the court of those items. So,
I think of the memo. I don't believe of the transcript, because in my pile of documents that I have on this issue, it does not include this transcript, but in my recollection, it was presented to the court in chambers. I directed my staff to make photocopies for the parties, but we did not keep one. All right, I will now put this in my stack of materials
All right,
on that
thank you.
pile.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yockelson. Mr. Goldberg, anything we need to take up before we conclude with Mr. Bodziak.
We're trying to find one of the defense exhibits, 1337A, we believe it is. May we have permission to look for that after jury comes in by having Ms. Martinez go into the hallway and check?
Why don't you get it right now? What is 1337A?
Defense exhibit.
Oh, okay, sorry, Mr. Sheck. Okay. And can we also have permission to go back to put our magnetic boards together in preparation for Ms. Clark's continuing direct examination after the jury comes in?
Why don't we do it right now so we don't have to wait?
Well, this is a previously marked exhibit.
No, I understand that. Why don't we just bring it out now so we don't have to be schlepping these things back and forth all day? Why don't we just get the exhibits out that we're going to use?
I think most of them are.
All right. Well,
Also, Mr. Fairtlow is home ill today, so
well, Mr. Wooden can
Mr. Wood is
ably...
going to fill in.
Looking through the exhibits. It's my distinct recollection that out of all the different videotapes that the people had initially proffered when Dr. Lee was cross-examined, there was only one that they showed, and that was of the two uniformed officers breaking down the crime scene and walking through the initial area. And my distinct recollection, that was shown to the jury, and Dr. Lee was then asked whether the imprints from those, the shoes of those officers could have accounted for 1337A. And we can't, when we look at the exhibit list, it's not distinctly noted because I think it came off a previously marked exhibit from the people, or in fact, I think that Mr. Fairtlow had played it off the laser disc. So I was wondering if they could get that, because I'd like to
I
use
don't
it.
think it was played off the Laserdisc. My recollection is it was videotaped because the quality was bad and it was jumping on my monitor. So I think it's videotaped.
No, Mr. Harris
You think it
recalls
was a
it coming
Laserdisc?
off the laser disc, and that's why we can't locate it as a separate exhibit. It wasn't marked. So I was wondering if they could find that, because I'd like to play that.
Mr. Goldberg, can you help us on that?
I'm sorry, this is part of the...
On the, during your cross-examination of Dr. Lee, you played the videotape which shows the two officers winding up the crime scene tape and then walking down the walkway, and then you used that to cross-examine regarding the source of other possible footprints, correct?
Right.
Do you recollect which exhibit that was?
I believe it's 101, Your Honor.
101? Do we have 101 available? Now I've lost my clerk.
We'll need some time to just rearrange that.
Well, I'd like to make sure that we've got it
Yeah, I'd
available.
like to get it.
Mrs. Robertson, do we have videotape? All right, she's on top of it, all right.
We also have other videotape that we'd like to show. The one, if you recall, that showed, I believe it was hard copy, filmed by hard copy of the Bundy area and
American
shown.
Journal.
Was it American Journal?
Yeah.
That's shown in through the window of the living room of Ms. Brown with the candle still burning. Remember that? So I would like to show that snippet as well.
All right, do you have that queued up?
No, but it will be. It better be.
It'd be nice if we could finish this morning.
I agree. Well, we can begin, Your Honor. We're not, I don't.
All right, here's 101. All right, Mr. Yelkerson, would you give that to Mr. Harrison? You can preview that to see if that's the tape you're looking for. All right, anything else before we invite the jury to join us? Ms. Clark?
Yes, let's begin. If we have to at the break, I'll show.
All right. And one further note before we get started today. Counsel, I would recommend that you each side get copies of Rule 5120, Rules of Professional Conduct, which will become in effect October the 1st. Regards out-of-court statements by counsel in a pending case. I recommend you read that carefully. All right, let's have the jurors, Deputy Mayor. And let the record reflect that we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel.
Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm going to stop it there. We made it to the next video. We made it to 2 hours. So the video we're watching is approximately 2 hours long. We're 12 minutes into it. But the next video is only 30 minutes long. And then we go back to 2 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour. 2 hours, 1 hour, 1 hour, 6 minutes. So it's hard to gauge by how many videos are left, because not all videos are equal. Some are more equal than others. So we're getting there. We really, really, really are. Let me just see if I can guesstimate. 462 is still testimony. 466 is still testimony. Okay, I know it looks like factually 473 is a closing statement, I think. Because wait a second. Do they use two different lawyers in closing statements? Are you allowed to do that? It really looks like Marcia is talking to the jury for at least, at the minimum, 3 videos. And then clearly, Dearden is talking to the jury for at least 3 videos. And then video 480, well, definitely 481, yeah, is Johnny talking to the jury, because they're facing the jury. And then 485 for many videos is Sheck, and then Cochran again, and then Marcia again, and then, so it looks like when we get to the closing arguments, they all go on for a couple days, and I guess we get a parade of lawyers, but we're not there yet. We're not. All right. We'll hit 460 tomorrow. That's all I can give you. I'm so excited. Guys. Oh, Zach, congratulations. That's awesome. All right, I have a live stream tonight. I got part 2. I have a part 2 that's pretty darn good. You're going to like it anyway. I'll see you at 8 p.m., guys, Eastern Standard Time. See ya. Thanks for coming out. I appreciate it.